Welcome to the Cloud Podcast. I'm Gideon Sutherland, and here at the Cloud, we like bringing the testimony of the saints, past and present, so that we can run the race that is faith with endurance. Today, I'm joined by Michael Rogers.
Yo!
And newly on the podcast, our long-awaited
German
introduction,
guy.
our German himself, Benjamin Brewster.
What's up?
So, Ben, you're German, right?
That is partially true. I am actually American, but I did grow up in Germany. Lived there for 15 years, from the ages of 3 to 18.
I was about to say, I remember our first time meeting, and you told me you were German, and the first thing I said is, you don't sound German.
This guy doesn't speak in the Deutsch at all.
I do get that quite often.
So why don't you sound German?
Well, English is in fact my first language. So
Really? What?
Yeah, it's embarrassing, I know. But I could sound German if you wanted me to. It's not that hard to do, really. No, but yeah, I mean, you sound like the language you grew up with. So.
Yeah, so why'd you find yourself in Germany for so long?
Well, my parents were teachers overseas on military bases, and so I was actually born in Japan. Lived there for the first 3 years of my life. Don't remember anything, unfortunately. But
What? Never mind. Keep going.
moved to Germany after that and spent the rest of my time there.
So, teachers overseas,
They do that.
they do that, yeah.
Keep going.
If you hear clanking in the background, we're making tea right now.
It's gonna be so good. It's cinnamon. Cinnamon.
Eminem.
I mean, I've seen the pictures. I mean, you don't remember being like a model in Japan at all?
No, I don't.
No,
Though I'm sure it would.
Not at all.
Not at all. You don't have any memories.
If a picture were to perchance cross the screen in the later YouTube video, would you perchance remember it? Maybe.
I highly doubt it, but I'm sure it would help with my humility quite a bit, knowing that I was a cover model in Japan.
Probably. I would feel more humble after seeing something like that.
Yeah. I'm co-writing with Martindale. He asked me to
Dude,
help advise. Yeah,
That's a big project.
it is.
You're being like an editor for his humility book. That's a big deal.
Yeah, he figured I had such a wide topical
Oh,
coverage of it.
Topical covers, like
Yeah.
a knack, like an expertise.
Yeah, it's I've spent many years developing my my humility, and I feel like over the years I've just naturally
You
grown
the
into.
most humble guy then.
Well, if you said it, I can't really say much against it. So
Ah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
News.
So growing up overseas, what was it like growing up? First of all, American overseas, but then also Christian, and more specifically, you grew up Pentecostal. So what was that like?
yeah, so I mean to the first point, being American wasn't too weird. I was in a pretty big American hub. If anybody knows, the Air Base Ramstein is like the central hub for, honestly, America overseas. Most travel goes through there, so if any troop movements happen, they usually run through Ramstein. So I was in a pretty big American area, or Americanized area of Germany. So everybody was pretty cool with Americans being there. We help stimulate the economy, so they don't mind.
Pumped you up.
Jawohl, Bruder. But yeah, there's going to German school was fun. I never really noticed my being American too much, other than the fact that I just went home and spoke English instead of German.
Yeah.
To the second point, growing up Pentecostal, I don't know. It was I mean, it's normal, right? Whatever you grow up with is normal.
I guess so, yeah.
But Germany is primarily, I guess it's state-run Lutheran right now. It's overwhelmingly secular at this point.
Right.
So was like that ever like a point of? Obviously you're existing in an American context, so obviously it's going to be at least more Christian focused, at least in some regards. But like interacting with people, was that ever like a point of like contention or confusion, problem maybe? Or confusion?
Yeah. So let me just throw a few things out. Something that the Germans do, and I think is really cool, is they teach religion in school. So, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, they were, you could either take Catholic or Protestant classes.
Really?
That's really cool.
Yeah, so I was in the Protestant classes, and then technically there's an ethics
Yeah.
class that they added later.
Wow.
For the non-religious affiliated and for the Muslims.
Okay, yeah, sure.
But I was in the Protestant class, and it's really sad. Most Germans have a very cultural understanding of religion.
Right.
So this is what my parents said, but like we don't really believe it. Even the teachers that teach it don't believe everything in the Bible. They typically take as like a collection of stories that aren't always true, but maybe like good moral teachings. So most Germans, when talking about faith, I knew more than just about everybody else there. I could, I just knew more background and had more of an understanding of what we were talking about. So talking about my faith wasn't like something I did super often. It just never really came about. It wasn't that big of a deal for 5th, 6th, 7th grade and me.
That's, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Struggled with that also.
Yeah. Not that I wasn't Christian. It's just that's not something you really do as a
You're a
middle
kid.
schooler. Yeah. So I mean, growing up in a German context, there wasn't a whole lot of sharing faith. I do remember a few different times that my family and I, whenever refugees came over, we would do some sort of outreach thing. So there were a couple times our village hosted like an outreach thing, and we came, and a lot of times the immigrants would flock to us because they couldn't speak German, but they could speak a little bit of English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
and so I remember one time we went. I brought my chessboard actually, and I played chess with a few of the immigrant.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I mean that's very me, right? But it was a lot of fun. It's cool
That's
memories.
cool, that's cool.
But yeah, I mean, that was like really the only maybe like outreach ministerial work I remember ever kind of doing.
And so your church in your church was in Ramstein, or was it on base?
It was in a nearby town, but it was AGWM,
Okay.
and it was for like military members overseas. Was kind of the idea.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So
So I was gonna say, like, a German Pentecostal church plant sounds on the rare side, I guess. Like, I don't know. Yeah, that was just like the question kind of lingering in the back of my mind. Like,
Right.
is it something that was like organically German, or is it like a more American-run kind of thing? Like, what's the dynamic there at the church?
yeah, it's definitely American. Whenever we came in 2006, maybe 2007, we started off with this church, and I'm gonna say church loosely as a group of believers, not so much as a place right now, because we started off as an on base place.
Sort of like it's like the beginning stages of a church plant, essentially.
Kind of like it was there, and like we didn't start it. It was already there. We came to it.
Yeah.
But it was on base at the time. So, and I don't remember how long it was like that, but eventually we were kicked out because we didn't own the building.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And they wanted to expand it was another church that owned it, and they wanted to expand to a second service, I think.
Okay.
And so they just didn't
okay,
have space
okay.
for us.
I see.
So we found a new place in an old car dealership
Yo.
and transformed it into a church.
Dude,
Just
dealing
like the
out cars or dealing
Transformers,
out
bro.
Jesus. Yeah, that was what I was going.
You know,
for.
transform the old car dealership. Let's take
Oh, okay. I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were making some obscure Transformers reference.
No, I was just thinking of like that one scene where Jazz in the first Transformers movies like scans the Pontiac and turns into a... That's like the thing that came to mind for whatever bad reason. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Poor reason. I don't know. It's late.
I don't think it's poor.
Yeah.
Go,
So I mean, how about how big was your church over in Germany?
I think the biggest we ever got to was about 200.
Okay, yeah,
Nothing huge, but it always fluctuated because military members move out every 3 years. So
Yeah.
it's always
wow,
switching,
okay,
always
yeah.
changing. By the time we left, there were only 2 people who had been there longer than us for the 15 years.
Wow.
And the next closest person, I think, might have been like the pastor, who had been there like maybe 8 years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
so we'd been at the church for 15, and nobody else was close, really, except for another older couple. But yeah, I mean, it was nice. That's just how life was overseas, so you kind of get used to it. People moving in and out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't anything crazy. It was my mom led kids ministry until I was, well, for the whole time I was there. My dad was a part of the worship team and was the worship leader a few different times, usually as interim. We were always a part of the church. I worked with soundboard.
Yeah.
Soundboard game.
Dude, legit.
That's all I did.
My background as a 3rd grader, I was clicking slides.
Yeah.
So the first time I ran slides, it was like the middle of summer, and we there was like we were on we just got pro presenter as a church.
Whoa.
Nice.
Yeah, so we were church playing.
We didn't get
just-
that till late.
we got pro presenter, and like you can have animations on pro presenter slides. Yeah. So I was like fiddling around with the animations, and I put on like a slow falling, like it might not have been summer, it might have been like wintertime. So I was like, oh, we can put on like snowflakes, falling down, and like it was just like the season.
Yeah.
And I put
Creating
it,
atmosphere.
I put it on, and I left it on for the entirety of the sermon.
Oh, no.
Also,
Yeah.
because I was like, it's nice. It looks like, it looks good.
Yeah, Gideon's making an executive artistic.
And like every single adult came up to me afterwards. Is like, I fell asleep because of you. Don't ever do that again.
What? Okay, that's not the reaction I was expecting. That's on them. If snowflakes put you to sleep, that's on you.
It was
though.
like really like. It was not like.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it
Do
looks
you have any
pretty.
soundboard stories?
You have any soundboard stories?
I mean, messing up is always the worst.
Yeah.
But also
Speak to
being
that.
at a Pentecostal church,
Right.
You
they
gotta
don't
guess.
know which way
Yeah.
the sound's going. I don't know which way the sound's
Do the
going.
chorus again.
So like, I got pretty good at like listening to where the note change was going, and I could figure out which song, like which
slide?
which slide to put on sometimes. Yeah.
I
No,
mean, you
most of my
see
stuff
that
is
at our
normal.
university.
Yeah.
Like they guess wrong every single time. They just
It's
guess.
a hard job. It's not paid very well.
No.
Yeah, if at all.
If at
I
all.
made no money.
I was gonna say.
And they make children do it. Child labor.
Yeah, literally.
Well, I didn't do it until I was in middle school.
Oh, I got slept up there early.
Yeah, you got into the game late. I got in like the 5th grade. You know.
I was in there 3rd grade, clueless. Like, I was balancing sound. Like, it was. I'm gonna be so for real. I made some really biased decisions during worship service. It was really funny because my mama, she would sing louder whenever someone was off key to cover them up.
Nice.
And I'd be like, "Oh, I got you," and I'd like pull their slider down. I would just make them quiet. Be like, "Oh, you're off key." Gone. Be like, boom, balanced it. And then the sound guy would come over and be like, Mike, what are you doing? And fix it or whatever, fix it. And legit, I would just always be like, they're singing bad. And I would pull it down. Or and I would just mess with the gain and the little slider thing. I was having a field day. But the wildest thing I did, I can't believe I did this. We just got this new piece of sound equipment. It was this new thing. And it had this brushed aluminum thing. It was all black. And me and my brother were up there, and I had a pair of scissors, and I was like, dude, you know what would make this look really cool? And I just started, carving the edge of the whole thing. I, scratched it up a ton. I was like, dude, this looks sick now. And, to this day, this whole church, poor church, it's got, these scratch marks, all over their little sound thing. And I was like, dude, isn't that so, aesthetic and edgy? It's got, this, silvery gray, outline. Anyways, yeah. It was a whole thing.
So you were terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, my career was short in the soundboard, but
Oh, that's tough. I ran it for forever.
mine was like 3rd to 5th, and then at big church, I didn't do as much.
Yeah, mine was we were just off and on because we moved so much. So
You had big church?
Well, okay, I say big church. I mean, like when I moved on island, like my dad was like, "No, you don't need to do it anymore," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So,
Did he ever say he wanted to?
yeah, did you get to do anything else?
I mean, I did like worship team sometimes. Like I played piano.
So he got demoted.
That's wild, by the way. Yeah, because keys is like less.
Nah,
holy than
soundboard is an
soundboard.
elite group of.
You're not on stage. It's more.
Right. It's
Yeah.
more holy, more humble.
Yeah.
More holy, more humble.
You're doing things
You know.
for no earthly pleasure,
Yeah.
That's true.
other than getting to mess with other people.
Oh man. So you were over in Germany until you came to college. So coming to college, what was that like? Coming back stateside, how was that?
Well, I hate to correct you already because this is your podcast, but
Really?
I never really got back stateside.
Okay.
I came to stateside.
Came to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever
know
visited
Germany.
stateside?
I had visited.
Okay,
but
boom, you
coming-
came back.
I don't know if I agree with you, but
Technically.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there were some things that were culture shocking to say the least. One thing, and I'll never forget it, is one of the first times I went to an actual restaurant here in the U.S. There was someone there, the waiter or waitress, I can't remember which one, and I fully expected them to ask me what I wanted in German.
Yeah, that's culture
Yeah.
shocking for sure.
And I
What,
was so
they didn't?
disappointed that they did not.
What? That's crazy.
Another thing is overseas, typically white people speak either English or
Yeah.
French, and other ethnicities
Yeah.
speak other languages. So hearing English from everybody's mouth,
No,
It's kinda
dude.
weird sometimes.
No, bro, let me. I'm gonna be so for real. When he said this kind of thing, like freshman year, I was like, this guy's racist. But like legit, I spent like some time in Italy, like over the summer on a missions trip, and like, dude, it's so real. Like you get so used to this idea that like, okay, that person like looks like they're like from Africa, let's say. That means they're either gonna speak like the native like African language from their region, be it like Arabic or Senegalese, like whatever, right? Like whatever language, and then plus like French. Like you
Yep.
just like expect that,
Yep.
right? Or like you like, oh, that person looks like they're from like Bangladesh or like India or something. Like they're probably gonna speak like Bangla or like one of the 5 big Indian languages. Like, and so like yeah, no, I like totally get it. Like it's shocking to hear everyone speak English.
yeah. But other than that, I mean, I'm used to American-ish culture. I still have that like, I'd probably describe it as almost preppy version of America because the air bases are typically the preppy version of the military.
True.
Because yeah, people call it the chair force
Chair
for a
force,
reason.
nope,
Yep.
nope.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So that's where all like I mean, I was blessed to go to a good school with, I mean, not a whole lot of trouble. Yeah. So coming to the U.S., there's that bit of culture shock, I guess, especially because Springfield's a bit rougher of a city. Yeah.
Straight up, yeah, that's true.
Former meth capital of the world.
Yeah, baby. You roamed in some year of the 2000s.
Yeah, it was recent.
Yeah. People talk about it like it's like,
Still the reality.
or like they're kind of sad about it.
That it's not. Yeah.
Like
It's sort
maybe
of funny.
Like, this language is like we got beat.
We got
like,
beat.
before, like darn, I'm really sad to like go that time. Like I don't think they mean to, but it's like this like funny like what's our claim to fame now? Cashew chicken? Like
No, I think it's the thing that I see most consistently about Springfield is like the cheese mines.
Oh,
I mean,
Brad Pitt.
the cheese
Brad
bakes.
Pitt.
Yeah, and Brad Pitt.
And we have a Buc-ee's now.
And we have a Buc-ee's. It's nice.
Shut up.
Bass Pro is the claim.
Bass
I was gonna say Bass Pro.
Oh,
yeah,
or
yeah.
O'Reilly's too. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
A super random town to have the O'Reilly.
Yeah, I mean, you have both Bass Pro and O'Reilly's like headquarters in a random town in Missouri that's population of like 200,000 people, and it's like not really by anything else major. I mean, you have Branson to the south, but other than that,
I
like,
didn't realize it was to the south.
what?
I don't drive. I don't know where anything is. I just kind of assume everything is north.
Mike, we are on the north side of Springfield. We go south when we're going to Branson.
That never registered in my mind.
That's just the opposite of north.
Yeah, dude.
If you go north far enough, you can get there.
I was gonna say, like, that's just reverse north. Like,
Reverse north. Delusion.
It's north somewhere.
No, one of these days, guys, I'm gonna learn cardinal directions, and it's gonna be over. Like,
You're never gonna be able to fly, Mike.
well, if I was a car, okay,
Okay.
whatever.
Oh, that's so funny. So, but like coming stateside and really getting on campus, because we obviously go to a Christian university, and sort of getting involved. Well, spiritually here, what was that like? Was it like a culture shock? Is Pentecostal like culture and service and theology any different over there? And how did you, like, especially at that first few months, feel and adapt to that? Obviously, like, you visited previously, but
Yeah, so I mean, I'd say theology was pretty much 1-to-1 coming here. Experience, this is definitely more youthy than most Pentecostal churches, so there's a lot more movement and services, I'd say.
Yeah.
are you talking about the chapel services specifically?
Yeah, I'm saying, so it's like chapel. But I'd been used to that because I'd gone to, there had been a couple, we called them iYouth conventions in Europe, held by a couple of missionaries. So I'd experienced some of that, like, Pentecostal, where, like, the first 3 days are, you know, kind of normal, and the fourth night's where everybody's gonna be slain in the Spirit. The whole speaking in tongues night kind of a thing. So I'd experienced all that before. So I mean, there wasn't too much of like a spirit shock.
Yeah.
Other than the fact of, like, people do disagree with me, and now I actually have to understand what I believe and why.
Who is that person?
Probably Mike.
Yeah, no, I was the biggest.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Okay, maybe been a little bit.
Dang, why don't you beg a little harder?
It wasn't. No, it was.
I think he needs to read the book.
I do. I know. I remember that first conversation that we had in my room. You remember that? No?
Yeah.
Yeah. And because
what was it about for those who weren't there?
we were getting there.
Beg the question.
I was like, oh yeah, we had a conversation.
Yeah,
That's
I was
it.
like, what
No.
the heck? Keep going.
I don't remember the specifics. At that time, I was just coming out of. I was still very, very, very reformed in my understanding, and so I was like, you know, as a classic reform guy does, talks about predestination every other sentence.
Yeah, dude, it was intense for us Arminians.
Yeah, acting like you're still an Arminian.
Well, yes, like his. Like,
I know.
Retrieving back to former Mike and Ben.
I remember you asked me what my favorite book of the Bible was. I do remember that.
Yeah.
And I asked you yours. And I remember distinctly both of us going, yeah, we haven't read the Bible fully. But this is my favorite right now.
Dude, that's so good,
man. What a time. Wow. That's crazy. You have since read the entirety of the Bible. I'm still working on some of the minor prophets. Depends. You haven't finished. I thought you finished your plan.
Are you
Well,
sure
okay.
the first 11 chapters?
No.
of Chronicles?
I've definitely read all 66 books.
Oh, okay. All 66. I think that's.
I
I think that's a little bit of
Just
a
messing.
hint where this conversation is going.
Just messing.
Yeah. So I mean,
he believes in less than 66
he
books.
believes. Yeah. He read extra one.
Freaking book of Job.
No one likes the Book of James.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Especially if you're German.
No, I mean I do like asking people's favorite books of the Bible, each in the different particular genres. But like, so what was that like? I mean, I remember some of our first interactions were not the easiest, that's for sure. But it's not even just me, but like from a broader perspective, being challenged by other people too.
Yeah, I mean, some opinions were definitely dumb, but I still had to figure out how to argue against them. I remember like second weekend, this guy named Eli came.
Man just name dropped.
That's
so brutal.
We'll get that later. He came and said that he believed that God was in time so that we could have free will, and I'm like, that just goes against every Christian belief I ever had.
I remember talking about that one for the first time. I was like a face palm.
That was the first time I think we unanimously agreed.
Yeah.
Like we were like, no.
that was rare. I mean, because even though like you were classically Pentecostal, you didn't agree with Ben on everything.
Oh, no.
Then I was like super different than you guys at that point in time. I mean, I was at that point I would have been like fully on board with 5-point Calvinism. I was just at that point I was just starting to get into like real present stuff in the Eucharist, but I wasn't confessionally formed at all. So I had a lot of answers, and I had a lot of Bible verses out of context, but not really like. And I could.
Oh, we remember.
Oh yeah, okay. And I was really good at arguing it because
He was really good at citing Romans. He knew that book.
I knew Romans really.
I just know that there were a few times where it wasn't so much of a gotcha, but I argue things weirdly. So there were a few times I caught you off guard with the questions I asked. Even though I think you still... that's fair. You had pretty decent answers. I don't know. Your full arguments on predestination back then never really got me, to be quite fair. But it was fun arguing.
I mean, we just kept on coming to like these impasses where we're really boiled down to like the mystery of the sovereignty and existence of God, where it's like really impassable, and where we can't really articulate it because we can't exist in such a manner. And I would come at it from one perspective, the other perspective, and you would come at it from the opposite side, and then because we're at this impassable, like almost like unexplainable reality, and we didn't really have the terms to like explain that itself. We really couldn't bridge it at that point in time. I remember specifically, like when we were in a room and we were talking about like basically we're talking about determinism in a broader sense, and you're like. We're specifically talking about like compatibilism and like soft determinism, and I was just like, no, just because it's in a causal chain, it doesn't mean that it's forced, and we just couldn't come at an impasse at that time. But it really did lead into more mysterious things. What have you been thinking about recently? As you've grown these past few years? I mean, obviously you've changed a lot and you've grown a lot, and.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you put three forces up against each other, they kind of all have to find an equilibrium.
I will note.
Yeah, Anglicanism.
This just shows how smart Ben is, because me and Mike are biblical studies majors with our other various majors, but they're all in relational to language or philosophy and biblical studies in some manners. Ben's a math major. He does this for fun.
Yeah, which is like so nuts, you know. Like I don't know. I think it's so interesting, like looking back and just kind of like seeing like us all try to articulate things like that are like that mystery aspect of it, and like really coming to like what I would almost call like Russell points, which like you don't realize that's what they are at the time. You're just kind of like, we just kind of like all theologically stub our toe on this thing, and like we all got to be like, what? Well, we just kind of like disagree, and like I don't know, like if there's a way forward, but like, well, and you like over time, like you become more friendly to ideas as like you all are kind of wrestling, like we were all kind of like wrestling together.
Oh, the more you kick the rock, the more it breaks away. Yeah,
and the more it breaks your toe. So like, it's like you kind of succumb to the will of both the rock and your toe. Like it's like this pushing, but yeah, I mean like. Yeah, I think it's interesting how we all kind of like coalesced into this like similar realm at this similar time. But I mean,
I think that's a very good comparison. I mean, the rock being the one thing we all agreed on, that Jesus Christ is Lord, and Him shaping us, but also us kind of shaping each other, coming at it from different angles, but we all sort of come to the same rock.
Trying to figure out where the heck the rock is.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the heck the rock is, where the heck the rock's leading, you know.
Yeah, what does this rock want to do?
Just thinking about that one scene from Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah,
where
just the rock's just sitting there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, was the rock really here? The big Protestant question. A lot of Protestants will argue that the rock's not really there, that it's just symbolically there. But we believe that the rock is really there.
And I mean, I think the biggest turning point for all of us individually was a development of a sacramental perspective of just the Christian church in general.
Yeah. So when did this start for you?
I don't know the specifics. It sort of feels random for you, like me and Mike.
Kind of thing?
Yeah, like me and Mike were like on this. I mean, I came into college sort of already like interacting with.
The slingshot was set. You were aiming that direction.
Yeah, aiming in that direction specifically, like with orthodoxy stuff. But like, what really started you down that path?
There's a few things that come to mind. I'm not sure how much I've actually told you guys, but I've thought about this a few different times when trying to articulate it. For one, the idea that baptism saves was introduced by Gid. And I had one question, like, where do people go, what verse people turn to actually believe this, because I thought it was crazy. And he turned me to 1 Peter 3:21, and that's a pretty good verse. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. So that was a bit of a stumbling block for a little bit, but more than just that, I think something spiritual happened as well. I was going to Hope at the time, and there was a pastor from Brazil who came and spoke, and he had a message for the college students, and he called all the college students to the front at the end of one service and prayed over us. And though I do use this term loosely because I don't know the full effects of what the term may mean, slain in the spirit, I feel like it sort of happened to me. All I remember is I was touched on the forehead and I started going backwards. I just felt pure joy, and it felt like a piece of heaven was there. I don't really have any other way to explain it. I just know I was crying for the next 30 minutes apparently, but it felt like one or two. I was just laying there. At some point, a blanket was brought over me. I was fully conked out, but I know that distinctly. Since then is when my theology has started to change.
It's sort of interesting, and I want you to elaborate on that more, but like something that's like a distinctly Pentecostal, charismatic, almost action, you don't really see it in other denominations, like sort of opens you up to a less Pentecostal understanding. Or maybe, I mean, I guess it depends on how you view charismatic understandings of sacraments, and communion and baptism and all those things. But we continue.
Yeah, I mean, so like, it just seemed like from that moment on, the Spirit of God was definitely there and active in my life, at least within me.
Yeah.
And then I think something within me drew me to search and press, and so I started. I don't know if right then, but I think it definitely started there. I mean, whenever I think back to like my development, that's what kind of pops into my head. So some part of me thinks that's God placing it there, but also noticing that like I did have a spiritual encounter, and that's what started the ball rolling. Because nothing can happen without Christ first calling us. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, over the next few months after that, because I think that was in like November, maybe October. It was definitely in the
of last year.
Yeah, of last year in the fall semester. Over the next little bit, we were still arguing about everything.
Yeah.
But I think it was the next thing that comes to mind is spring break, when Gid came with Liz and I to my grandparents, and we were leaving there, and he had a Pints with Aquinas episode on in the car that we were listening to. And I think that also got the ball rolling a little bit. Not that I agreed or knew what they were fully talking about. And I don't even think they were talking about anything too outrageous that I disagreed with. But it opened me up to a whole new branch of thought that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
And so getting into that allowed me to maybe seek answers to some of the questions that at the time Gid didn't have a full comprehension of.
Yeah.
So like answers to does baptism save us? And while Gid did a great job of showing resources, he didn't have a full grasp on it yet, I would probably say.
No, this I'd agree, and I mean I'd still say like, especially at that point in time, I was like I remember various conversations. You'd ask me things, and I'd just be blunt and say I don't know, because I was working through it myself at that point. Because I mean. And especially with like a lot of like baptism saves, I get asked about that a lot, and my answer to that is I don't necessarily know that have a direct explanation as to the manner and how it does. I just know that the Bible says it does, and that was a lot of my answer at that point in time. So it's like I'm comfortable using biblical language in this way, and I would probably have a much stronger answer to that in the actual processes that are taking place and the biblical like context and typology that's present within it now than I did then. But even then, my big perspective throughout everything has always been Eucharistic theology, even more so, and the development and understanding of that. And then I started getting into like ecclesiological, like soteriological justification things, and that's sort of where I am right now. But I remember, I mean, you went a completely different route with some of the questions that you were asking.
I mean, just listening to you talk, we had two very different routes on this. Like my first question was, okay, where do people go for this baptism thing, right? And then as I started to listen to it, it seemed less and less unlikely or dumb. I started looking at maybe some of the extremes. So the first thing, and I know this was my thought process going in, was listening to the Pints of Aquinas. I listened to their thoughts on baptism, and it made me question some of my own beliefs, and that was okay for me at the time because it was there in the Bible. I mean, like I saw the verse "baptism saves you," and it's like it's hard to reconcile. Yeah. And so, but I immediately turned to go, okay, I know Catholicism isn't true. So I'm going to go to the farthest thing I can find and see what they have to say about that. And then I'm going to disagree with them on it so I don't have to be that.
That's how you. Okay. That is the most bin thing ever, by the way. I just want to preface, like, it epitomizes who he is.
Well, okay. Like, here's the other thing, right? Like, this makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
No. I'm gonna let him introduce it, but I was just like, just go ahead and then I'll.
Yeah. So the thing I turned to, almost immediately was, okay, well, let's take a look at purgatory, because we all know that can't be true.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude,
so I looked at purgatory.
Clear and obvious.
Yeah, clearly it can't be true. So I looked at purgatory. I started listening to the podcast on that, and it suddenly started making sense to my math brain. So it made very logical and coherent sense to what I was thinking, and it's not necessarily explicit in Scripture. The arguments for it implicitly, I thought, were coherent and pretty strong, and then this just opened up my mind to a whole new path of thinking. And honestly, I think I was blessed over this summer to have the job that I did, which was door dashing, so not much of a job. But I was able to sit in the car and listen to these podcasts all day, and I just went through everything. I mean, I listened probably to maybe even like 100 hours of podcasts within the summer or more. I was going through.
I remember we were trading. You know, you'd send me one, I'd send you one.
Yeah.
Shout out Joe Heschmeyer. But I mean, I remember my favorite text from you all summer was like, "I need help," because you started getting swarmed with questions. How was that like coming home and you're exploring all these things and you're learning all these things, and oh no, you have to talk to parents about these things, you know?
Definitely weird, and I probably didn't go about it the best way, but I mean, I was trying to figure out, I was trying to figure out myself and my own beliefs, and I mean, you look to where you received counsel before, which is your parents, and so like I started asking these maybe like simplified like versions of some of these questions I was having, so like leading up to like baptism saving, he's like, well, how are we saved? Like starting with basic stuff, and I found little disagreements in things, and I started like poking at other ways. Like, okay, well, here's another one that I was looking into was, and I'm not sure if I fully agree with it or fully like accept it, but praying to saints was another one I was looking at. Or it was like, well, what is prayer, and can we pray to saints? It was like the answers I was getting weren't sufficient anymore. And my parents got probably concerned. Probably the right term.
Been there.
But I mean, I know me and my dad argued a lot over the summer about theological stuff, and even my mom a little bit less so. And my sister's gotten a little bit. I almost convinced one of my sisters that praying to saints was okay. Not even just one-on-one. Not even one-on-one with her. It was just I was arguing with my dad, and she was almost switched to my side.
I'm like, wait a minute.
That makes sense.
But like, I don't know. It was weird. Like looking back, and now it's like I finally became my own.
Yeah.
For a sense, and then also it's just like that was how I went through solving these questions was with pushback, and I don't like. I think it's good. I think it's necessary for people to develop their own thoughts and beliefs through pushback. Because if you have no pushback, then you could be believing
It's an echo chamber.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
Echo chamber.
Echo chamber.
I wasn't going to let that slide.
glad
I
you
said
both
it,
heard
I was like, should I correct?
No, I was like, no, I got this.
Echo chamber.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good summer, and I don't think I answered my dad well on most things I probably talked about, because I just didn't have answers. I was bringing things up that I didn't fully know about, and I probably came at it with more heat than I should have, and
it's hard
less
when
patience.
you're talking to your dad, bro.
No, I mean, it's definitely true. It's hard to not get fired up when you're talking to your dad, but truth doesn't have to defend itself.
Yeah.
That's something that Kness talked about a little bit, is that like the truth doesn't have to hide. You don't have to like you don't have the truth and be like, oh man, I didn't expect this one. The truth just kind of is, you know. It's like it doesn't have to run. It stands, and everything else will bow to it.
Has to interact with it.
Yeah.
I mean, when we understand, especially like, I think because I mean I remember our call over the summer when you just rando called me, which was nice. You don't usually rando call. Usually plan if it's happening.
It's true.
And we just talked for about an hour about all the different things that were going on. But like the one big thing was like, as long as we're looking to Christ and to that rock, we're not really worried about it, because we had a lot of questions, a lot of scary questions. Still really scary, because as much as we were, at that point I had been Anglican for about a year at that point in time, and I was actually interning in the Baptist church. Love my Baptist brothers.
Podcast 1 if you want to listen to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Woohoo. We were still like, there's scary questions about like, what if Orthodoxy, what if Catholicism, what if I'm just wrong and I've believed a lie, right? And my parents were right, and you don't want to be in that boat too, especially if you're going to be a pastor in the future, but also if you're a layperson, you put your soul at risk.
And your parents being right is the worst.
Your parents being right is worse. And I mean, one thing that was pretty consistent at that point in time, and it's something we talked about on that phone call, was as long as we're looking to Christ and running to Christ, there's not much to worry about, because He's the way, the truth, and the life. You know.
Yeah.
No, and I think just like going back to like even how this journey started for you, I think it's a really like beautiful picture of like, I don't know, yeah, it like kind of intersects with a lot of questions you can run into as you kind of get into this more sacramental space in theology, where like you can kind of like, it can kind of feel almost like you're like, you can't really interact with a lot of the body of Christ because there's this sense in which they're like, it's like, wait, they're just like wrong, air quotes, you know, not even air quotes. You can like, I think there's a degree to which like, if we believe what we believe, then like we can like, we have to be like, no, yeah, I mean, like, I disagree with you. I don't think that your articulation or the way that you're thinking about this is necessarily correct. But I think that like a really comforting thing is that like, you know, even in that space, like at Hope, right? Like a very like Pentecostal, charismatic, non-denominational space, like you're still encountering like the Lord, and he's still like meeting you there. He's still meeting his people, and not only like his spirit is still guiding you into all truth, right? So I think that's like a really just like beautiful like beginning for this.
Yeah, and we talked about it a few weeks ago. I was having a conversation, and I remember you specifically, Mike, were asking about like, well, do we need to go like minister to our families because they don't believe in truth? And I was like, and as someone who has like experienced it a bit longer, I remember I said that it's not necessarily we minister. We need to be fervent in truth and proclaiming what we believe, but we also need to understand that the pursuit of truth is not as closed in one area as it is a much broader thing. If we truly understand that God is infinite, the pursuit of truth can be a pursuit of truth in love, in spirit, and how we interact with one another, just as much as it's a pursuit of truth in
like a more
in
pure,
the
like,
Eucharist or baptism. And of course, there's certain things that are like more important. And I would say that when we're talking about the variety of things, Eucharist, like sacramental theology, is a very important thing that needs to be hammered out. But I'd also like, and it comes back to like how you think how this all started for you. Is I was talking with one of my mentors and one of the bigger people and influences in my life right now, and I was explaining to him because he was just at odds with this idea of he's like, well, I see people who don't have this perspective on communion and the Eucharist or anything like that live very mature and loving and great lives in Christ. And I think that it comes down to the Holy Spirit dispenses grace in a manner and multitude of ways, and he did that in that service. He showed, like, God showed you grace and awakened you to particular truths and realities in that way, and he does it at his table in communion, and he does it in the waters of baptism, and he does it when the word is preached and proclaimed, and like the way of the Christian life is a way of God showing grace and love to his people, and that's not contained in a singular thing. There's things that are definitely more, but it's not contained in a singular thing, and I think that's one of the things that's so awesome that it's almost like come into clarity these past few years as we've sort of like realized these things. It's the amount how active God is like God is moving like every time,
bro,
at all times.
He's doing stuff.
Yeah, he's a God who's continuously doing things, and if anything, coming from someone who's reformed and coming out of charismatic school, that is the most charismatic way you can view God. Right, and the Holy Spirit is interacting sacramentally in my mind, but also just interacting in our daily lives and leading us in truth and guiding us and comforting us like the Bible says he does, you know?
Well, I mean, more than just that, I think we're fulfilling the Pentecostal movement of returning to the early church. Okay, that was a bit mean. That was a bit of a poke there.
I was talking with I kind of brought this up because I meet with one of the philosophy professors here on campus like kind of semi-regularly, and I brought this up. I was like, aren't like Pentecostals like almost like Catholics or like to a degree like sometimes like more Pentecostal than they are, right? And he was like, well, I think if you're looking at like the mystical like Catholics, then yeah, I think like the way that they talk, like it's almost like there can sometimes be this more like consistent articulation. But I mean, yeah, I think it's like interesting the like language that people can use sometimes when we're all like kind of talking about the same thing. Like when people use the words grace or Holy Spirit, he was like think about it like this. Like I can't remember what denomination he's talking about. He was like, Pentecostals say Holy Spirit, but other people just say grace. There's but anyways, I like trailed off there, but
Yeah, and it's been interesting. So with all that, like, where are you right now? Like, you grew up Pentecostal. You've been learning a lot over these past few years.
Yeah.
You're a junior. You're a senior. You're about to graduate. You're going to be getting married in May. Where are you? where are you at now? What are you doing? How you feeling? You know, I know it's pretty crazy. It's exciting times.
It is. It's very exciting. As far as theologically goes,
That was a correct sentence. You didn't have to make a
that was
cool. Okay, just making sure. There's a fun little anecdote that I like to use that I think is kind of funny. Is I came into this university very agey, very very agey. My parents were right about everything, and then slowly, as Mike likes to say, we kicked the rock and things started to break and shatter. And AG wasn't. It started breaking a little bit. So I need to add some paste and fix this. And so I started grabbing some other letters like an N, and then oh crap, it's spelled Anglicanism. And so, I mean, my theology is definitely there. I mean, I've read like the 39 articles. Read through the deep Anglicanism book that you guys brought back.
Yeah,
It's pretty good. It was very, very, very good.
Killed it with that thing.
He did. But yeah, I mean, as far as my theological walk goes, that's where I'm at right now. I'm pretty content with staying there. At least for the time being, I don't see any reason to not.
Yeah.
And then as far as life goes, yeah, I mean, I'm graduating this upcoming semester, and I'm getting married a few days after that. So my life's it's moving, it's picking up pace. It's exciting. It's a little nerve-wracking. First for me. So
First marriage.
So
First wife.
First, wow. So I mean, how is like with
What's that like?
with the with all like this, like you're developing theology, like how does like that work relationally with someone you're pursuing and now engaged to, so
yeah, I mean, it's now I get to know both sides of the story a little bit. So I mean, I know that Liz was like super scared over the summer. She was like, he's gonna come back and not want to be with me at all, and I'm like, because like it is a little, I mean, I can fully understand it. It's a bit nerve-wracking because I'm going through this whole like theological shift. She has no idea what's going on because we're separated by 16-hour car ride. We can't see each other over the summer. So but yeah, I mean, I know she was a bit scared, and I wasn't really sure what's going to happen. I kind of expected everything to go well and me just come back and be like, hey, this is what I believe. What do you think? And she'd be like, great.
New bag of goodies.
Yeah, it didn't go exactly like that. I mean, we talked a little bit about it. I had to like introduce things over time a little bit. But for the most part, things ran pretty smoothly. I laid out my case, and she agrees with me on most things. There's a couple of things that she's still a little wary about, but that's healthy, I think. And you don't change overnight. I certainly didn't, so I don't really expect her to. And right now we're going to a high church, Assemblies of God church.
that's an oxymoron.
It is. It's very.
That's a beautiful oxymoron.
Very, very different than what people typically think. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. And yeah, I mean,
you guys had like a soup day the other day, right?
we did. Yeah, the church had a common meal, and we had soup, which was nice. So we got to sit and
That's how
talk
you know
with
it's
people.
high church.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's how you know they eat together.
Yeah, soup.
soup.
Other denominations don't do that.
Yeah, no, other denominations can never dream of eating soup.
Soup. No, I mean I've been to the church you guys attend, and it's lovely, and I really enjoy it. And it's interesting. It's really exciting, and I from what I can tell, Liz has been really excited to be like really plugged in at this church. And I mean, what's it like being able to be really plugged in, and like even in like a transition year, like how does that feel, and especially like transitioning from like a more like the transition point from something that is more low church, more congregational, more free flowing, to something that's more organized and formed, and because you can agree theologically with all these things, but when you actually get into a church, there's a transition period, and it can feel weird. It can feel different, especially if you're not used to it.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the first few times was definitely weird. You don't really stand up and sit down so much at an AG church.
Right.
But for me, I was like, this is kind of what I believe, and this is where I stand, so I'm going to accept it. And I think it was a little easier for me to go through and be like, this is really cool. This is what I see the Bible teaching, and this is what they're implementing. So I thought that was cool. And for Liz, it was a little bit different. I think she was really nervous that first Sunday that we went, but she ended up really enjoying it. And yeah, she really likes going. I really like being there. There's something nice about being able to share this with someone a little more intimately.
Yeah.
Me and Gib have just been sharing it with each other, so that's a little bit different.
Yeah, homies learning, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. You'll be able to go to an Anglican service one day.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a fiance. I feel like you're winning this one.
Us dapping up for learning intimately, air quotes, about church together is not the same as you having a wife.
It's not the same as you getting
You're not missing out.
Yeah.
I feel like we have the silver version of the battle pass.
I've definitely been blessed, is all I can say.
Yeah. Well, on that note, thanks for coming on to the pod.
Well, thank you for having me.
We hope to have
Dude,
more.
He's a permanent guest, I feel like.
Yeah, he's a permanent guest. He's almost like his name's on the title card. But it was great talking with you. It's great hearing more about your story and getting more perspectives and learning things that I actually didn't know.
Yeah.
But this was The Cloud.
Peace.